when there was an upgrade, sometimes the authors of the system would focus on just the front end, but the back end, the key tables that were required for KRA reporting were not there at all. And I just told the fellow, I don't know how you have been using this because this is not a system. This is just somebody who was learning how to design a system. You should just have gone and bought a corporate or a proper, don't do shortcuts. Somebody is selling software for 5K, 10K. Then you ask yourself, really, is it really good software that somebody has developed? So we must be aware that as designers, for me, that was an incompetent designer because there was no documentation, there was no schema diagram that this table is related to this table. So you really had to try and follow the code, which the code was every other day was being upgraded because it meant that if there's a problem, one client faces a problem, then he has to move around with a flash disk updating everybody else's platform, and it was very kienyeji way. Yeah, but that's not how we should design systems, and I think it is upon us as computer scientists as we graduate to be able to defend our professional by doing the correct thing, by designing usable, dependable, maintainable. We know all those quality aspects of software that should be there. And so that calls us as software designers to know a lot of stuff in terms of what is already there. I think things have really eased out for you people in terms of you can scope your area of professionalism in the sense that you decide, I want to be a back-end expert. And so you deal with the back-end itself without necessarily having to do the front end or the user interface. But it is important for you to know everything. And then even if you move to your specialization, then you can specialize. In our days, we were actually both, you needed to know everything from the way you are going to design it from the back end all the way to even how the user interface or the front end, as you call it nowadays, in addition to being the one who will go and train the users on how to use it and even support it. Of course, maybe perhaps those days they want a lot of people with the capacity, the capabilities, compared to now where we have very many graduates who can divide the work and be able to do the work also. Yeah. So we see those challenges that are there, and another challenge that is there. As much as for you going forward with time, maybe you're able to say, "All right, I know a little bit about this." Um, is the challenge of emerging technologies. Yeah, the challenge of emerging technologies in the sense that there's always newer technologies. One time you are on Flutter, the next time I don't know what is trending now. Yes, Edwin, what is trending in terms of front end before we go to back end,
I
especially
think maybe
mobile solutions.
maybe Laravel.
Laravel is an old framework. I know it.
The latest
I know
update.
it because it is old. If I know it, I know it is. It's been there for a while. Alex, you're laughing. I know Laravel. I've used Laravel. I've used Ye framework. Yeah, but I
No,
know
it
know
means that
about
then is old also.
yes, yes, Alex.
It means that he's also old, so he ignores it then.
No, I don't think you do this. Well,
you,
he's using stable
you
framework.
know, a framework can be old, but it has a very good update, and you can get a very new one. But comparing it to an old framework, the old one might be better. But now to why I raised my question,
Yes,
my hand.
yes.
Uh,
Yeah, I see your hand was raised.
there's a there's
Yes.
a place we were helping them upgrade their ERP system, and when we got to the part of upgrading the library module for the librarians, we actually discovered that the ERP system they had procured had another library system integrated into it. So like the library module was not actually developed together with the general ERP system. They actually took another library management system and just integrated it into the ERP system. So we started talking about now upgrading that specific module, but now we discovered it was another system, so we could not really do a lot on it. So we decided to start designing a new library management system to really integrate with the ERP. But now there was a debate and an issue that there was no way we could come up with a better library management module for that system, given the system they had already integrated has been developed by information system specialists, and it has been designed over the last 40 years. It has been updated for the last 40 years. So these people are telling us now, this system has been designed by information system professionals and a very serious computer scientist from MIT. So you can't tell us we remove this one so that you design now your library management system. So maybe you can just give us a comment on that, on how we should handle such a situation between building a system and then now maybe if maybe you want to design a specific module to do a specific thing, between actually designing that module from scratch against time and maybe costs in terms of getting more developers or getting another system or maybe a skeleton of another system that maybe is properly, professionally, and well designed, then integrating it to the system you're designing. What are maybe you can just give us a comment.
uh, this would just be my comments. And as you are talking, I was asking myself, why reinvent the wheel? If the library system that has been designed has been there in the market, with all likelihood, one, if it has a market segment, that means it has been used widely. It means then it has been engineered and developed for that purpose, and feedback has been reviewed. I mean, feedback has been gotten, and best practices have already been embedded into that system. Now, by the time you are discovering that it is actually inbuilt, it means the user was not using it. And the question would be, why was it not activated when all the other modules were activated? That would be one. Then sometimes when systems are bundled up, it means then that the provider of the ERP system, it had been a prior agreement with the provider of the library system that as they upgrade their library system, there must have been an agreement with the ERP company where there is mutual agreement that even when institutions have bought our ERP system and we integrate with your library, we should always be getting the latest version of your library. So if that was not working, then it meant that maybe perhaps the two companies that had agreed to collaborate and work together needed to find out what happened. What happened in the sense that the provider of the solution was not able to update those libraries. And ERPs are very complex to try and dismantle a module or bring in another module because they are very integrated in their workflows. My advice then would be perhaps find out how can you get the upgraded library modules for what has been integrated, because saying you are going to start doing your own can take you very many years to stabilize it and even for it to be accepted. And so I would agree with the user. Uh, you are not going to produce a better system than what was already produced. So it's negotiating,
Uh,
negotiating in the sense that these are information library scientists who have been in the trade and they know what the functions that, because you first would need your team, then would need, do you have the time and the learning curve to learn what librarians do, the best practices and all those other things, so that you embed that in your system. The learning curve would be big, would be long. We had such a scenario in the earlier days at the university. When we were developing, I think what you're using is still the initial old system that we developed very many years ago, and they should upgrade that system right now. It's obsolete. The question was, okay,
we're working on that.
we have demonstrated capacity, we can develop customized systems for students' processes which are not there in the market. And the university needed a financial management system. And as part of the management, wanted the ICT department then to develop the system. But the argument we put forth was one, the learning curve. We are not accountants. Two, the availability of standardized working systems that are used by very many organizations that produce good results. Three, that buying an off the shelf package and integrating it would not be a problem uh, because the off the shelf had all the 99% of the requirements. The only requirement it was not having was a grants module, which is very specific. The way the universities run their grant system is very unique. You might find the way the University of Nairobi operates the grant system is very totally different from how maybe a university in the US or in South Africa runs the grant system. And so based on that, we put up a position paper that the university is better off buying off-the-shelf system, quick turnaround, and we are still able to support, train and support that platform. Great. That is free consultancy for Edwin. Let's move on. Yes. So we start seeing that in the issue of, my question was about newer technologies because I think it was the other Eugene who mentioned about tools, where he started with one tool and then realizing maybe that tool is not as appropriate. He went to another tool, and as he goes to that tool, he has to it had an impact in his design phase. And the question here was, as when we think about e-commerce, we also have to think about what tools are users using. Uh, the most likely is that they have, some will have laptops, some will have tablets, different sizes of the tablets, and a lot of them will have mobiles, smartphones, some of them bigger screen smartphones, others smaller phone, others generic phone. And so my view, or I get to hear that more and more there are newer technologies that keep on coming up. Yeah, I think the latest I've heard was what? Is it Flutter or something? Or has it been there for a while? Who wants
No, I
to
believe that.
help me?
Yes.
Yes?
Okay, for me, yes, I believe Flutter is the latest for the UI, but that's for mobile applications. But the
Mhm.
old ones are still being used because people still use React, and as Wetungu had said, he's still using Laravel tools. I mean, to code for his clients. So really, the old ones are still in use. That's what I would say. So they have not like gone out of like the commissioned or the deprecated. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. Kennedy?
Yeah, I'd like to I would like to disagree with Alex. Flutter is used for both mobile.
Is
Flutter is used for both mobile and web development, and it was developed 4 years ago. So it's pretty new in the industry.
yeah, I thought that's what he has said that it is new. It's newer.
But he said it's only,
Yes.
and that's not true.
Oh, he said
Huh?
it's only for mobile.
Yeah, and it's
Both what?
for both mobile and web. You can actually make mobile and web applications simultaneously using Flutter.
Yes, and that's what I said. I say that it's actually still being used for mobile. Like it's still in use. It's not. It has not gone out of like it's what's the word? It has not
But how do
deprecated.
we
Still
draw the
exists.
line?
All right. I think
But
that we can allow you, Edwin, to say something.
uh, how do we draw the line between, you know, what we are trying to say is all all the framework is obsolete and the new framework are better. Does it really mean that because there's a possibility that a framework can be old, but
No, I don't think we are saying old frameworks
you know,
are bad. Kennedy, no, Edwin, I think what we are saying is, and what the author says is that one of the challenge as designers is, yes, we are aware of the older frameworks of older technologies, but at the same time, we have a challenge of knowing what is new technologies are coming. And as these new technologies are coming, are they better in some aspects that could then make us consider them? And if we have to consider them, do we have the knowledge to ensure then that as it impacts on our design, we are still able to use them to produce a workable solution? So we are not saying that the older frameworks should be done away with. No, I know that a lot of people still use JavaScript. JavaScript has been there for a very long time, and just Java itself has been there for a very long time, and it is being used. All we are saying is that there's that challenge. For example, if I was to go back, if I decided my mind is still young at heart and I want to go back to coding, developing applications, um, I would find then the challenge. These are the things that I knew. This is what is coming in as new. How do the same question you are saying, it would mean as a programmer or as a designer, I need to know what are the current performance knowledge issues of what is current in terms of the tools that are there, what these tools can do, what they can produce, vis-a-vis what we already know in terms of established frameworks, what companies are using, what other people are using, and then being able to use them. For example, I think when Meta, the Facebook, decided to create its own database, it had been using some other platform, some other database, I guess. And then they decided to use their own platform. If they feel like that is a better platform for them, then it is okay. The challenge we have then as designers is being aware of all these new technologies, and then we have to make the decisions. And the author there says, yes, we have to make design decisions about even the tools that we are going to use. So we are not saying that it is bad to use older technologies. No. It's just that sometimes I find it interesting that there's a technology that I already knew several years ago and it is still being used. In my mind, maybe perhaps maybe those who are doing more modern platforms may not necessarily be using. But we know that there are some platforms then that are no longer being supported, and that would then raise the question: what would happen if you are developing on platforms that are already the libraries have been deprecated, there's no support for those libraries, then it creates instability in your design, in the runtime of your of your platform, of your software, and then it creates a quality issue. So there are all these balances and checks that we need to perform. We are together so far. We have agreed old is good and new is also good. There's a song old ladies sing that when they are making new friends, that the old friends are gold and the new ones are silver. And with time, we hope the silver friends will become gold friends. Yeah. So there's an interesting argument before we go um, to the issues of the design aspect. There's a question there that the authors of this paper that we are reviewing, this is the paper on assessment of design issues in e-commerce systems development. They argue that agile methodologies are not recommendable for developing dependable systems. Do we agree, or it is we are not in agreement with them? Let's have some discussion on that. Yes, Jeremy, go ahead.
Yes, I think I agree that agile is not recommendable for dependable systems. It's more recommended if you're running like a corporate setup. It's corporately efficient, but in terms of delivering the system, it's not efficient. You find that, first of all, the amount of teams it takes to just do certain tasks, the bureaucracies of delegating work, you find that there's more meetings going on than work going on. Then you find that most times, even like maybe your scrum master or the project manager that you have might not have the depth of knowledge in the type of thing that you're going to build. Maybe they're just product managers. So at the end, yeah, it's an inefficient shop, but it gets people hired and it gets corporate to churn their turnover numbers.
It gets people hired. In what sense?
Most times you'll be taken down and you'll need teams. Like for example, there's someone who I deployed like a Dolly Bar ERP instance for, and that's a one-man, one-day thing. But then this guy was so convinced that he needs a team, he needs people to do this and that, and he put that up. And for a while, we'd have meets on Google, and we are talking about these things. And I'm just like, we just do the work one time. And then I had to also meet other developers. Then we have to put each other at par so that you can pair code some parts. But all that felt unnecessary. It was just easier for one person to just deploy that.
So you argue that it is good for corporates, but and this corporates also producing software that is being used by people.
Some of them are also being paid by grants and like they're on tenders, they're being tendered or they're procuring their software. So it works for that process. Like people will be paid. Like even the agile setups for startups, you find that startups get into like the venture capital and accelerator programs just to sell their startups, not for them to run it finally. They
Mm,
want a payout.
mm.
So it works well for those teams. But then at the end of the day, is the product that you're making really like a reliable system?
So you're making me feel like agile is a hoax.
I actually believe it is.
Yeah, like it was a hyped hoax. If people still do proper project management, they should still be able to get work done. Um, yeah, but that's interesting. Where you say it's for corporates, maybe perhaps um, the question of the practices that are done in organizations, are they based on efficiencies and standards vis-a-vis on hyped buzzwords? Let me use that, hyped buzzwords, in the sense of like what Jeremy is raising. He didn't feel he needed to have wasted so many man hours in meetings and all that. They should have just given him the job, told him, yes, young man, do this, and he just does it in one day. But if you do it in one day, Jeremy, you'll just be paid for one day consultancy.
Very true.
And maybe the IT department has prepared a project plan, and this thing is supposed to take 2 weeks. And Jeremy is just thinking, this gig I need to get away with so that I can go to my next gig, you know. Um, yeah, but the author argues, and you seem to agree with that, that maybe perhaps agile methodologies are not uh, for dependable systems. And the question would be, I think a lot of organizations are using this methodology. Are they really producing dependable systems, or are they producing systems that are working prototypes and what do you call them in Scrum? The cycles. There's a name for the cycles. Am I forgetting?
Sprint,
Yeah.
the sprints or the
Yes,
iterations.
the sprint, the iteration. Yeah, is about improvement of what otherwise was already running. And so you know, there was some time back. I don't remember which company, which bank this was, and people were really complaining about their banking app, that it had a lot of problems, and I wondered, whether they actually used this agile thing, because it seemed like it was always work in progress, as opposed to finished product, in the sense that it is stable environment, um, it's safe for the customers, transactions are okay, they are actually closing up. you know, if the transaction doesn't happen, there's rollover and you get to be informed, and you don't get deducted, and you really never actually paid for it. I really get irritated when I have when my transaction goes through the bank, but actually at the POS point level, it has not gone through. Being at understanding a little bit about databases and transactions, and the closing of transactions, I get irritated, in the sense that that code is not working right, because you should not deduct me when the POS has not yet agreed that the service has been given correctly. Yeah. So the question of this agile is very interesting. Thanks, Jeremy, for that. Anyone who wants to contribute to that agile discussion? Why the authors actually argue that this methodology is not suitable, and they don't recommend it. Who has not spoken today? Who has not spoken and wants to speak? You guys did not read. We're like, this madam is giving us too many things to read. But you can hear the discussion is really about the things you do. Yes, Tevin.
I'd just like to add an example to
Yes.
in agreement with what Jeremy has spoken about with developing products for or dependable systems using Agile. So I think there's also there tends to be a lot of broken features when you're saying prototype. Just to add an example, um, I think based on how we've been taught about management, you don't look at, and especially if you're not the team lead at say of a programming team in an organization. So I'm seeing like a situation where we've had before. The Let's say the Scrum Master, like Jeremy was saying, the Scrum Master might not be well versed in the technologies you're using to implement a particular feature. So, uh, as an example, RabbitMQ, I think we've seen about it with all the hype about artificial intelligence. Someone decided to develop, let's say, pocket-sized, the size of an old iPod, let's say, a small device which you could speak into, like a digital assistant. And they raised like $30 million, which is a lot of money to probably ship a product like that. But at the end of the day, because, well, based on what I read about their life cycle of development, they were using Agile. And the product ended up having a lot of issues despite having promised to, the early adopters that the product would match their needs with regards to the new AI age that we're rolling into. So I just wanted to add an example of that.
Wow, thanks. The product you mentioned was Rabbit and what?
It's called Rabbit, I think Rabbit MQ or Rabbit ML. It was a small device.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Let me just send a link.
Okay. Interesting. So we are starting to see um, feedback that it could actually be true that some of the things we are seeing are not stable enough based on the methodology that they used, which is what you're calling the agile. You're saying that they used agile um,
Yeah.
methodology, and they kept on I mean, it's not producing the kind of quality that is needed. I was trying to go back
It's
to.
Rabbit R1.
Okay. I will look it up and see what that is. Anyone who has interacted with that platform, and what feedback you can give? Yes, Jeremy.
So I followed up its release quite heavily, but it
Mhm.
was quite disappointing to realize it was just an AI wrapper that has been put in Raspberry Pi. So there was nothing much going on.
So you felt cheated.
Yeah, it was just hype. It took all the hype. It's like saying AI will take our jobs.
It is not going to take.
True.
Yeah, we know that it will not take, but there are those who are talking about it taking the jobs, but I don't think it will take jobs. I wanted to go back to the trying to look for the exact page where yeah, if you remember in your, I think it's around page 3 of that article, um, where they actually just towards page 2, the end of page 2 is where they bring in the issue that agile may not necessarily be dependable despite their popularity. And if you remember um, your software engineering and questions of how you develop software, the inspection works of the design, inspection works of the algorithms. Does it really take, uh, um, is the solution you're documenting really correct? And as software developers, and I know even in your fourth year project, if we asked you today to show us the document, your user requirements specification document, how many of us, by show, raise your hand if you have documented that in your project, your requirements specification document? How many of us you guys did not do that? Yeah. Uh-huh. Jeremy, you have your user requirements document.
But it's not aligned to the project.
It's not all. You didn't go back to update it. Yeah. There was another hand that went up. Gregory. Gregory, your hand was up. So you know the perception. Gregor, are you in class or you just signed in and disappeared?
I'm here.
I saw you raising your hand. Speak what you wanted to speak. What did you want to say about the requirement specification? You have your for your program project, or you don't have?
I have it.
You have it. You'll find then a lot of you actually overlook the analysis, and yet the analysis is